All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Anwar Youssef Dunbar, and this is Big Discussions 76, Science and Technology. First of all, please like the stream, please share it, and please subscribe if you're watching on the playback. Same thing. Please like, share, and subscribe. I think this channel is knocking on the door of 600 subscribers. The goal is to get to 1,000 and then beyond. So if you're visiting this channel for the first time, please subscribe. Likes and subscribes are free. If you want to make a donation to the channel, my Cash App and PayPal information are below in the description box, or at least they should be. So this morning, we're going to have another discussion about glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase deficiency, which is a hot topic on this channel. So I'm going to just briefly walk through how we got to this discussion and how I became interested in this. And then I have some guests who I'm going to bring on, and we're going to talk about some new data and some new potential pathways in terms of whether or not there's a connection between G6PD deficiency and COVID-19. So this is emerging research, and the methods that they used to generate this paper, I think, are very, very exciting for my channel and just in general for everyone's general knowledge. So how did I get interested in G6? How did I get interested in G6PD deficiency? Well, I started Big Discussions 76, Science and Technology. I think I officially launched it back in February or March, and that coincidentally coincided with the start of the pandemic, at least here in the United States. So much of the content I started creating and uploading on this channel just by virtue of what was happening. It happened to involve COVID-19, a virus, the testing, the probes, whether or not it was man-made or whether or not it was from nature and those kinds of things. As you know, my background is in pharmacology and toxicology, so I took a particular interest in the drugs that they were looking at to treat COVID-19. At that time, 2 drugs emerged in the news cycle, and I took a look at those. One was, I always present this structure without the proper background, so I'll present this one. One drug was chloroquine, and the other drug was hydroxychloroquine. This is hydroxychloroquine. The difference is that hydroxyl group right up there in the top left-hand corner of the slide. And so the question, and I'm not going to delve completely into this right now, the question is whether or not this is an effective treatment for COVID-19. And at that time, the question was that an effective treatment for COVID-19? And for a little while, it seemed as though it was, and there are conflicting reports on this. I was curious as to why at that time the president and some other voices in science were interested in this molecule. And in August, I actually presented a paper here on this channel showing that that drug can affect, at least in vitro, the trafficking and co-localization of the virus. Okay, so that's why they were interested in this, and there's conflicting reports about whether or not this is a effective treatment in combination with zinc. In the process of shooting that content, someone tugged my coat and said, "Hey, what about the G6PD deficiency subpopulation? You didn't say anything about G6PD." And I said, "Well, what is G6PD? I don't know anything about it." And that's when Niloufer showed up in my comment section and said, "You know what? Yes, this is a real thing. You need to pay more attention to it." So, on this channel, I'm about getting to the truth and being transparent and not about necessarily being right. So I did some digging and did some reading, and it turns out that there are individuals who are deficient in the enzyme glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase. We're going to talk some more about what that is and why that's important when my guests come on, but this is a real subpopulation with real concerns. And I'm just going to be brief and say that when you think about G6PD, you want to think about the antioxidant system or systems in your body, and that protects at the cellular level, protects against oxidative damage. In this instance, we're concerned about the red blood cells, and individuals who have the G6PD deficiency. When they're exposed to certain stimuli, they're at risk for something called hemolytic anemia. So with the fact that, we know that our red blood cells, they carry oxygen from our lungs to our extremities. We know that if these become compromised, that can have various deleterious effects to the individual, which we've discussed thus far. So I've had 2 live streams with the G6PD Taskforce and Foundation, just talking about the deficiency and also efforts to better characterize it and understand it, and also bring better awareness to it. And one of the emergent questions has been, is there a potential connection? Is there a connection between G6PD deficiency and COVID-19? And so we're going to talk about that today. I'm going to bring up my first 2 guests, and I'll bring up my next 2 guests, and we'll delve into the paper. So I'm going to bring Keely and Niloufar up first. Good morning, Niloufar and Keely.
Good morning, Anwar. Great to be back.
Morning, Keely.
Good morning. What a beautiful day it is here in New York. Finally, no snow, no ice, and it's sunny. It's
okay.
Great.
I'm looking forward to some. I'm going to Buffalo next week, so I'm looking forward to at least having some. Do you all want to say anything about the foundation and the task force, or anything we've covered in the previous 2 before I bring in Yulia and Rahman?
Keely, do you want to go first?
Sure. I thought last week when we were talking about treatments and for COVID and how that may counteract people who have G6PD deficiency, it could be very dangerous for them. And I just want to emphasize that they are still doing treatments out there with hydroxychloroquine, as well as methylene blue, and they're doing other things. There's a Dr. Peter McCullough from Baylor University that has actual protocol, and the list of them have things like vitamin C with like over 3,000 units a day. And that is like tremendous amount of vitamin C for somebody who has G6PD deficiency, as well as they are also having hydroxychloroquine as part of that treatment. So I'm just going to stress one more time how important it is that if you are being treated for COVID and you know you are G6PD deficient, please speak with your physician. Tell them about your concerns about the treatment, especially if it has things like hydroxychloroquine, aspirin, vitamin C. Just make sure it's not overindulging or too much stress or oxidative stress on your body, where you could go into a hemolytic crisis. So, which is not good, especially when you're fighting COVID virus. So that's all I really wanted to just emphasize from last week or 2 weeks ago.
Thanks, Keely. And Anwar, I'd like to reiterate what Keely said. I think one thing we know for sure about G6PD and COVID is that certain medication does not work for us. at all and could cause more harm than good in some cases, depending on, like Keely said, the dosage and how you're using it. So we definitely have to be very careful about the treatment options. There is also a more emerging research, and today our two scientists we are bringing on, Yulia and Roman, will talk about the etiology of COVID and how G6PD enzyme may play a role. And that could bring another level of complexity to the equation. But we know that treatment options are not okay. I think it was a great session with Carmela last time, and she did call out drugs that were good and not good for us. In today's session, of course, we want to focus on the science behind COVID and how the role that the G6PD enzyme might play. Again, all this is emerging research, and a lot of it is hypothesis or experiments done in a lab so far. And unless we really have clinical studies that actually look at the G6PD population with COVID, we are still in the mode of hypothesis. And we are all hoping that with this awareness and with your sessions, that people start to take more notice and start actually addressing the G6PD population more effectively, especially during COVID.
Okay, I have a question here. Can you explain what G6PD means? So I will put the diagram back up and just give a brief discussion of what that is and why that's important. So G6PD stands for glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase. And in this context, it gives rise to NADPH, which is an antioxidant. So in our cells, depending upon the cell and the cell type and what's happening, you can get the creation of oxidants, such as superoxide or hydroxyl radicals, which can damage your cells and damage your tissues. So you need antioxidants like NADPH to scrub those out, and those systems can become overwhelmed, and you can experience oxidative damage at the cellular and also at the tissue level. I try to keep that for the layman, Herb, but that's basically what it is. You have an antioxidant system. Well, we have antioxidant systems in our bodies and in our cells and tissues, and those protect our tissues and cells against reactive oxidative species. And we're going to see when we discuss the paper that in some instances our bodies naturally produce reactive oxidant species in the context of immune response. I try to keep that simple, but and so the reason this is important is because again, I want to tell everyone that there's a subsection of pharmacology called pharmacogenetics and pharmacogenomics. And what that means is that we are all genetically different. You could be in the same family. You can have brothers and sisters, and you can express enzymes and proteins differently. In this instance, we're worried about G6PD, but you can express enzymes that metabolize drugs differently than your brother or your sister or even your coworker. And because you handle that drug differently genetically, you might need something called individualized medicine, where the physician has to take into account your own unique genetic profile. And there's a subpopulation that is deficient in this enzyme, and so they're more susceptible to stimuli that can cause hemolytic anemia in this instance. So I try to keep that simple for the layman. Let me, let's see. So yes. So in essence, your body's overwhelmed by certain things. Yes. Your cells can become overwhelmed by reactive oxidant species, and that can cause DNA damage. It can cause damage to enzymes and proteins and all kinds of nasty things. Okay, so Keely and Niloufer, with that, I will bring up Yulia and Roman, and we'll look at the paper that they've written. So everyone, remember, think about pharmacogenetics and toxicogenetics in this story. That's how this applies. And also now we're bringing in COVID-19. So I'm going to bring up Yulia and Roman right now. Good morning, Yulia and Roman.
Hello.
Hi. Yulia, maybe you will introduce.
So I'm going to ask Yulia and Roman, thank you for being here. I took a look at the paper. It's very interesting. And before we jump into that, can you talk about how you got involved with the G6PD Taskforce and Foundation and your backgrounds? Roman, I know you told me you're an engineer, but Yulia, you go first, just for context.
Okay. I will introduce myself. Hi, I'm Yulia. I'm a medical doctor and co-founder of CII. My specialty is neonatal anesthesiology and intensive care. I have a prophetic story. At the beginning of my career, there was one critically ill baby with a suspected inborn error of metabolism. All the standard approaches failed. So, as a curious student, I started to get into research papers. Nobody had any experience with this. We were clueless. So, we urgently needed an innovative approach. We got lucky. We found hints scattered in the scientific literature and used them to cure the baby. I published this case. Its success inspired me to employ artificial intelligence to help more patients. This is what modern precision medicine looks like, I think. So, these were my thoughts when I met this talented developer, Roman. That is how we started CII. Then, COVID-19 struck, and there were no experience to guide us. But we had to act quickly.
Okay, and so you said precision medicine?
Because,
Yep.
yes, but we had to act quickly because every life matters. We launched the CII engine for COVID-19 research. G6PD protein appeared in the pathogenesis. It was in the first days of April, and we were happy because this finding explained a lot of unique features of COVID-19. We posted the idea as a preprint and started further exploring it. On the same day, we found spellbinding Niloufer's petition asking to link COVID-19 G6PD research. It was amazing. Then, charming Kelly inspired us to publish our research, and we did it. The G6PD Taskforce is one of my most interesting and unforgettable experiences. Ladies, we are on the same page, and thank you for your enthusiastic support on this momentous journey.
Thanks, Yulia. Anwar, maybe I should have introduced the task force before, but Yulia and I did meet. So the way we started the task force is I got very concerned initially when I heard about COVID and I did a little bit of research. I knew some of the drugs like hydroxychloroquine do not work for this population. And I also knew that a lot of people are not aware of their G6PD status. And there was some research done in Taiwan that had indicated that the G6PD enzyme is more impacted by an earlier strain of coronavirus, so the earlier SARS strain. So I started a petition on this topic, and Yulia and Roman reached out to me saying, hey, we've done some research and this is real, like where you're headed seems to be the right direction. And there were so many other folks like Keely as well, who's running the foundation, that were concerned about how COVID is being handled. And so we got together and formed a task force. Our task force, like Yulia and Roman, are right now in Belarus. We have scientists, doctors, and individuals and G6PD moderators from around the world that are part of the task force. And like Yulia said, it's an unforgettable and extremely gratifying experience to be a part of the task force. I think we're really hoping that we can make a change with this. And sorry, Roman, I jumped in, but maybe I'll pass it on to you.
No, everything's fine. Indeed, Nilofer, thank you, and Yulia to have the full picture. So Anwar, actually, my big thanks to you as well. You put stress in my name exactly in perfect Russian manner. So I'm really appreciating this. Yeah, so indeed we pronounce this Roman. But nevertheless, yeah, so like Yulia said, I'm co-developer and also co-founder of SAI. So I'm responsible for doing this thing. And previously I was used to run software company, and this is a spin-off of it. And at this moment, like, I'm fully doing the technology itself, and from time to time helping Yulia to run the research. Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Okay, Roman, I have a question here from someone in the chat. What language does Roman develop with, and does he have a science degree as well?
Good. So actually languages, I think the Python dominates. Of course, I'm not talking about like obvious things like SQL and so on and so forth. And about maybe my background, yeah. So I'm engineer and I have a master degree. Yeah.
Okay. I have a couple of tech guys who are subbed here, so they want to know what language you're programming with and you're writing the software with. I don't understand any of that myself, so I don't.
Of course, I will be happy to answer any any deep questions. So no hesitations.
Okay, just a quick question. One more, Roman. So you're from Russia. Yulia, where are you from? Which accent do you have?
I'm from Belarus.
Belarus.
My native, yes. Okay. My native language is Russian.
So with that, let's walk through the paper that you guys put together. All right. So I will enable my screen share. There. All right. So everyone can hopefully see that. I will blow it up just a little bit. So this is entitled Centrality of G6PD and COVID-19, the Biochemical Rationale and Clinical Implications. So before I hand it off, so again, you guys used basically an artificial intelligence approach to kind of map out the connection. Is that right? Okay. So just so everyone watching this, that's kind of where we're going. And that's exciting for me because I've never seen anything like this before. I didn't know that there were approaches to do something like this.
If you want, I can add some, let's say, some details how it is a thing.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Go for it.
Yeah. So also, like in layman terms, like you told. So I think that the core idea here is that what we did, we connected the dots. Because artificial intelligence is a very broad term, and at this moment when we, let's say, pronounce this phrase, immediately what came to our mind is machine learning. So, learning, first of all, in terms of deep neural networks, for example. And but what we did here is a little bit different. So learning is something not so substantial here. What is more important is actually like finding needle in a stack. So we went through the whole corpus of scientific literature to be able to find any possibly related interaction and then reconstruct the whole pathogenesis as a pathway. So our purpose was to model what's going on when someone catches the virus, and we tried to instead of achieving some nice benchmarks or whatever, what is really important as a machine learning exercise, our goal was, we had absolutely another goal in mind. We had a goal to reconstruct unknown thing. So that is why we're talking machine reasoning approach. Of course, supported by domain expert, or vice versa, actually. Domain expert was supported by this, let's say, search mechanism, traversing mechanism, and reasoning mechanism. That is how you can see the technology and how it did it. Does it make sense?
Yeah. So basically, the program, it was able to search the literature and then bring that data together, which is the reasoning part, right? It was able to kind of synthesize a meta-analysis. It was able to take everything and say, okay, this is what I think is happening, right? Or you and Yulia kind of say, okay, this is what we think is happening.
Yeah, exactly. Just small additional, let's say, technological addition from my from my side. Very important that yes, it looks at all literature at a single point of time, at every point of time in time, and then instead of seeing as a whole and instead of losing things, vice versa, we are trying to go step by step. So, for example, like SARS interacts with ACE2. So we pull up this first interaction. Then you have second interaction, like with alamandine combination. Then going down to G6PD, and this reconstruction step by step. So you see, and then when it interacts with, of course, domain expert, then this reasoning and reconstruction happens in very controlled way, and that's very important because it's not like synthesizing something and then saying like, "Hey, look, with machine methods we were able to do something." No, for us, of course, it was very important to make it absolutely valid from a clinical perspective. So that is why very important, and I would like to stress out it again. It's reconstruction and synthesis step by step. So like first interaction, second interaction, and so on and so forth. So that's how it's going on.
And every step was validated by domain experts as me.
And just to add, I come from the technology background, but not the science part. So Anwar, like you said, it was the first time I had also heard about a big data sort of viewpoint for research. And so Roman's tool actually scans the entire universe, I would say, of papers that are out there. And my sister comes from a clinical research background, and her comment was that, this would take me days and months to scan through this kind of research and get some analysis. With Roman's tool, you're able to do that. That whole process is accelerated. I think that's the really cool part in my mind of what Roman's able to do with his tool. And actually, I'm looking forward to having that tool more accessible to a much wider audience.
Okay, so Roman, so just to remind the audience, I think we lost. Oh, we briefly lost Yulia. It's Reconstruction and what's the second one?
In general, we use term reasoning.
Reasoning.
Reconstruction, or let's say synthesis, I think would be maybe more close term, because, like, we synthesize in our mind what's going on. So, and then we put it on canvas. I really like in one paper, actually, not even paper. Some people call pathways like cartoon networks. So I really love this term. So that's what we do. We like reconstruct model of the process, like cartoon network,
Okay, so for anyone for those in the audience who are not familiar with science, there are publications, there's vast amounts of data being generated around the world, and it can take time for one person to just read through everything and sift through everything and combine everything. But it sounds like their algorithm is able to just kind of read through everything and put everything together in a much more efficient way than one person would be able to do. So we have the paper here. Yulia, do you want to walk us through this? I know there are like 5 diagrams in here. How do you want to do this?
I can start with prerequisites, yes,
Okay.
of our article, and then can review our diagrams, yes. And if you have any question, I would like to answer them.
Okay. So prerequisites.
Yes.
Okay.
I will start with some prerequisites. Back in February 2020, ACE2 was recognized as a molecular target for SARS-CoV-2. So we launched our engine with ACE2 as a query. Nitric oxide jumped out as a pivotal player. Things started to click. It was especially familiar to me because I'm an neonatal intensivist, and I recognized one fact that is not obvious to adult intensivists. My insight was to link ACE2 with ARDS, acute respiratory distress syndrome, stands for, through nitric oxide. The secret is that SARS-CoV-2, as any pathological trigger, irritates blood vessels, causing functional vasoconstriction. This is an important compensatory mechanism to shunt blood from its large lung reservoir to protect the rest of the body. This is a functional phenomenon and develops proportional to the degree of irritation. Thus, vasoconstriction is one of the main physiological components of the body's inflammatory response. Let's call it RDS light. This is a transient and it is naturally reversed by nitric oxide. However, SARS-CoV-2, by destroying ACE2, suppresses nitric oxide production. This renders the phenomenon pathologic, formal ARDS. It makes ARDS the main clinical manifestation of COVID-19. Why is vasoconstriction-mediated ARDS so obvious to me as a neonatal intensivist? I have seen this clinically. Neonates during the first month of life become bluish during an ARDS crisis due to vasoconstriction activated fetal circulation. You see, I know a lot of things as a domain expert, and knowledge generated by machine just complement my observations with enhancing my basis of knowledge. And the power is when human and machine join together, and both of them are professionals. As medical expert, I felt confident that we are on the right way. What are the next steps? To create clinically useful guidelines. By the way, I'm an interested individual to get it right because I want to stay alive. First, how we can prevent progression of ARDS? The answer is activating nitric oxide production. How do we do this? By giving arginine, folic acid, NADPH. Wait a minute, NADPH? NADPH is produced by G6PD. This protein has the most prevalent frequency of mutations in the world. Maybe this is why G6PD deficient people do worse with COVID-19 than others. Therefore, it can be a trap for congenital G6PD deficiency. But why do older, obese, and diabetic people, for example, without congenital G6PD deficiency, do worse? Because G6PD deficiency can be acquired metabolically. How? This is a challenge. It was easy because I have the smartest engineer, Roman, and the smartest medical colleagues I have ever met. Infectious disease specialist Clifford Lodever from Oklahoma and anesthesiologist Sergei Kostychenko from United Arab Emirates. Our international team showed an ideal example how guidelines should be made. We combined clinical observations from the opposite parts of the world and explored the mechanisms that underlie these observations. And then using biochemical pathways, we describe treatments which can work or even be harmful. Primum non nocere. First, don't to harm. For example, we explained why COVID-19 patients worsen on ventilators. We showed how methemoglobin is produced and how it distorts the parameter of blood oxygen saturation by pulse oximetry, and how oxygen increases aldosterone aggravating ARDS. We done a lot. And what can I say? Our team is the best team I have ever worked with. Thank you, guys. You are the best. Maybe I sound too arrogant. Other good articles are published every second. But this treatment approach, based on our pathogenesis, at least saved my life, my 65-year-old mom, and one of my recent patients, 60-year-old man who has 80 children, were 2 his own and 60 adopted, who was treated at home with help of intravenous infusions and oxygen. Our article has been viewed more than 9,000 times. It has probably saved lives. So I'm proud of it and say this confidently. Let's start to go through it.
Okay, so Yulia, so for context and for the audience, I just want to go back just so that there are a couple of pieces that people understand. So you mentioned the ACE2 receptor, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the receptor that it's postulated that the virus is attaching to and entering into the body through this receptor. Okay, so when you hear ACE2, you're thinking about this, and that is expressed in the lung tissue, correct? Yes. Okay. Are you muted?
Sorry, please repeat the question.
No, I just want the audience to be able to follow along with some of these things we're saying. So this is the ACE receptor, angiotensin converting enzyme receptor, and that's expressed in the lung. It's thought that that's where the virus is going through and getting into the body.
Vessels of all organisms, especially in the lungs.
Okay.
Because the lungs have half of circulating blood, yes, from all organisms. That is why there are a lot of capillaries, yes, on 1 square of tissue.
Okay, so the blood vessels in the lung. And consequently, or should I say coincidentally, that's where patients see a lot of the inflammation is in the lung. Yes. Okay. Another word I want to make sure we decode for everybody is vasoconstriction. And basically what that means is you see these blood vessels are all throughout your body. And there are red blood cells flowing through all of them. Some of your blood vessels can constrict and they can dilate. So they can the diameter can become small, so there's less flow, and they can become larger, so there's more flow. That's what vasoconstriction and vasodilation refers to. Okay, so this is the first diagram. Do you want to talk about what's here?
Yes. This is our graphical abstract. Just a second, I will make it bigger. Innate immune response has 2 components: pro-oxidant, yes, system, and antioxidant. Pro-oxidant system triggers inflammation. From one side, inflammation is good. It is able to kill a virus. This is our protection. And antioxidant system should balance this pro-oxidant system not to damage our organism. On this diagram, we show that SARS-CoV-2 has 2 impacts, one on one component, pro-oxidant, and another impact on antioxidant system. And what we try to say that SARS-CoV-2 triggers pro-inflammatory system, yes, and inhibits antioxidant system. In other words, we trigger our immune response to be aggressive against organism. In my opinion, virus disappears in 7 days. There is no virus anymore, but fever persists. And fever is because of this autoimmune aggressiveness against organism. What especially I want to focus on inhibiting of ACE2 result in you see increasing of angiotensin 2. Yes, this is a potent vasoconstrictor of all vessels in short term, and angiotensin 2 is able to stimulate adrenal glands to produce aldosterone. This is a long-term vasoconstrictor, and moreover, it induces edema. Aldosterone, increased level of aldosterone is I can call it a specific biomarker of COVID-19. And one, I want to make a little branch. Why we try to explain why patients do worse, yes, on ventilators. machine found a very interesting fact that aldosterone can be stimulated by oxygen, because adrenal glands is just extremely sensitive to oxygen and can produce aldosterone, yes, in increased rates. That is why COVID patient that on ventilators and oxygen is increasing can worsen because of, yes, stimulating aldosterone that is already increased. It was very interesting clinical finding, because I'm intensivist and I treated a lot of patients on ventilators, and it can explain this finding that I met, and I couldn't find rationale to this.
So Yulia, you should mute up.
Okay.
Mike? Okay. Just again to stop and just to give the audience some context. So when we're referring to reactive oxygen species, we're referring to things like this: superoxide, peroxide, hydrogen peroxide, hydroxyl radicals, and hydroxyl ions. And correct me if I'm wrong, but our immune system uses these to ward off pathogens and invaders. Like in this instance, the virus, but it could be a bacteria or something else. So you have a pro-oxidant system, which is represented by the PO response, and then you have an antioxidant system. Is that what those designate?
Yes.
Okay. So you have one side that's creating this reactive oxygen species, and then you have another side that's there to kind of depress it. So you have a balance, correct?
Yes.
And so what you're saying is that the virus it perturbs that balance.
Yes.
Okay. And the aldosterone is a key player in this. It's a key.
Yes, I think it's aldosterone mediates link between G6PD and COVID-19. Mediates.
Okay. So from this first diagram, what should we take away from this first diagram here? I see the virus is here. Yeah. So I see it's blocking the ACE receptor. Is that what that's saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I wish this would show the entire thing, but it's a rectangular screen. So it's blocking the ACE receptor, and it's activating the reactive oxygen species. It looks like it's activating nitric oxide synthase, and you're also getting the superoxide as well.
Yes, the resulting damaged molecule is superoxide anion.
Okay. And so you have a decrease in glutathione. Is that correct?
Glutathione recycling required NADPH. We try to show that decreased G6PD causes decreased NADPH, yes, production, and due to decreased NADPH, glutathione cannot be recycled, yes, from oxidized molecule, and it decreases, yes.
Okay, so for those watching this who are unfamiliar with the role of glutathione is an endogenous natural antioxidant. So if the body cannot produce glutathione, that individual is going to be more susceptible to damage via oxidative stress. So the connection here is that the G6PD, there's a G6PD deficiency, which helps create more glutathione, and these individuals who are deficient are more susceptible to this oxidative damage, which the virus is contributing to. Looks like we just briefly lost Yulia. I think you're back. Okay. All right. Was there more you wanted to say about this particular diagram, or Yulia?
Yes. A little. Decreased nitric oxide, right and below on the diagram. Yes. Good. Yes. Decreased nitric oxide. It's interesting finding was for me as a researcher and as a physician that beside its vasodilator potency, it has another property. Nitric oxide is able to inhibit NADPH oxidase in macrophages. It is called antioxidant property. Yes, and I didn't know about that. That is why, beside RDS, yes, decreased potent vasoconstriction in lungs, we have additionally, yes, aggressive macrophages that produces superoxides, yes, that are able to damage our cells, including erythrocytes, that we can see as hemolysis. I would like to share this knowledge because it was one of my insights during my research.
Okay, so just to recap, so the nitric oxide generated by the eNOS, that can lead to decreased NADPH oxidase. Yes?
Yes, in macrophages.
Okay. In macrophages. Yes. So that means that you'll get more superoxide, more reactive oxygen species, or less?
Nitric oxide inhibits, yes, macrophages. Since macrophages produces superoxide, superoxide production decreases when nitric oxide get high. It's antioxidant. It is able to suppress, yes, pro-oxidant system. That includes macrophages with NOX2 enzyme that produces superoxides.
Okay. All right. Did you have any more comments on this first diagram? Yulia?
Yes, I think that I would like to add that on this diagram, could you get up a little bit where we show our conditions, COVID-19, yes, and metabolic syndrome, that this diagram is composed when two conditions persist simultaneously, yes. Patient with metabolic syndrome, which has pathophysiological components such as obesity, insulin resistance, and G6PD deficiency, yes, as acquired metabolic condition. And all these components included in metabolic syndrome. And when patient acquired, and when patient catches COVID-19, this diagram, yes, launches, started to do bad things. Only in the these two conditions are conditions to work start work these biochemical mechanisms, and direction will be in this way, as we described through arrows up and down.
So individuals who are obese and who are insulin resistant, they're more susceptible to these pathways that the virus can cause.
Yes.
These harmful pathways.
COVID-19 aggravates the condition that is already exist. Make patient more susceptible to worse outcome.
Okay. So Yulia, before we move on, I just want to ask one more question about the ENOS, because I told Ramon I have a background with NOS from graduate school. Does the virus cause a lesser expression of the endothelial NOS and the nitric oxide generation?
ACE2 is involved in pathway that produces nitric oxide as ending product. This is a protective branch of the renin and angiotensin aldosterone system. RAS, yes. RAS is from one side, it's good, has good effect because it is able to support organism during, for example, blood loss, and is able to switch on compensatory mechanism, yes, to maintain blood pressure. But if it persists in long term, it is able to create some pathological conditions, pathological hypertension, edema, susceptibility to edema, and ACE2 nitric oxide is our protective arm, yes, that should balance this RAS effect. It is useful. RAS is useful, but it should be balanced to be useful. And ACE2, this pathway is called ACE2 ENOS nitric oxide pathway, and this is our protective wing to stay healthy.
Okay. Okay. All right. Shall we move on to the second diagram in the paper?
Yes. Yes. I think I already told everything interesting from my side. If you have question, you can ask.
You see, my paper is highlighted for my own notes there. Things are highlighted in yellow. Okay,
Cool.
what
is
this?
Your questions?
No. Well, as I'm reading along, I was highlighting things just to kind of capture all the terms and so I can connect the story in my own mind. That's how I study sometimes. So, what's diagram number 2 telling us?
Here,
what are the main takeaways from this one? Go ahead.
Yes. Here is it. Here is the focus on how exactly SARS-CoV-2 triggers pro-oxidant system. Here is a macrophage, yes, with toll-like receptor, and how we try.
Before you go on, what's the significance of a toll-like receptor? What does that mean?
This receptor electronically looks like toll. That is why they call them toll-like. They're limited, yes.
Okay, well, it's involved. It's involved
Yes.
with generation of.
It's by chance. It's by chance.
Okay.
Yes. How we try to compose this story? We used facts from extracted facts from articles to make every details very close to each other. And even if we wrote 3 dots, it means that we try to show only the main things and miss some details, but these details exist. We are sure to depict this. Yes, that is why we wrote 3 dots, not to overload readers.
Right. So the 3 dots designate that there are other things happening there.
Yes, we get through this chain of molecules, but we miss it on picture, not to overload, because it is not should be on focus.
Right. Which you've depicted as the most important.
Only one message. Yes, and the message of this picture is that SARS-CoV-2 triggers peroxidant system. Yes, particularly macrophage. Macrophage produces superoxide. Here we show that superoxide is able to convert to hydroxyl. Yes, radical. Yes, and this molecule is able to damage virus. It's our protection. Yes, and from another side, it is able to damage organism. And we show by which way. For example, what is the neighbor of macrophage? Probable erythrocyte in the blood. Yes, that is why erythrocyte is a victim of the situation. It catches hydroxyl radical. Yes, and the lipid membrane disrupts, and hemoglobin converts to methemoglobin, membrane disrupts, and LADH start leaking, and all these things, we clinically called hemolysis. It can be latent. I would say every inflammation has latent hemolysis, but in case of, for example, G6PD deficiency, latent convert to obvious. That is why if there is no history, first of all, avoid any treatment that can cause harm in this group of patients. First of all, avoid, and that's all. Don't try, and follow primum non nocere. What was highlighted? By markers: ferritin, LDH, methemoglobin. This is a clinically relevant biomarkers that can be tracked. Yes, and my recent patient was tracked by these biomarkers, and I could understand if my treatment works. Yes, to be sure that we should continue or stop and do something else. But these biomarkers improved. Yes, during the trend was positive, and I was glad that everything is fine, and I was calm. I find that highlighting of biomarkers in this research has one of the clinically relevant help to all specialists, even if it not intensivist, but it can. But this physician can be sure what he can do in this situation, or stop not to do.
Okay, so a couple of things. So what you all are depicting here is how the hemolysis actually takes place. So the virus causes activation of the toll-like receptor, which leads to an increase in TNF alpha. Everyone, that's the cytokine, and that leads to activation of the nitric oxide synthase, which gives rise to the superoxide and the hydroxyl radicals, and that causes the hemolysis. Correct?
Yes, you're absolutely correct. I would like to add just one thing.
Go ahead.
A lot of news, yes, about cytokine storm, what to do, how to do. We agree it's a really cytokine storm, yes, and we show this manifestation of cytokine storm as increased TNF alpha. Yes, TNF alpha is cytokine and it is increased. But we cannot measure, yes, TNF alpha. We can, but for example, in Belarus, no, we cannot measure it on daily practice. And I think in another countries, the same story. That is why we don't, yes, highlight TNF alpha just because we have a lot of other, yes, reliable biomarkers. It's true, TNF alpha is increased and it is biomarker, but we have another friends and we can work with them.
Okay, so I just want to show this picture for everyone. So the hemolysis, everyone, this is synonymous with the hemolytic anemia. So this is the pathway. They're proposing this pathway to lead towards this hemolytic anemia. And individuals who are deficient in G6PD have a lesser ability to protect against this. So the other thing is you've highlighted biomarkers. So the reason that's significant is because are you proposing that these are things that the medical community can identify early on to when treating people? So biomarkers are basically, those are indicators of something happening biologically. To those in the audience who aren't familiar with that term, that's what that means.
Yes, it shows vector where we're going, to bad things or good things, just the direction.
Okay. So one more time, I think I should keep showing this for the audience because there are people who have non-science backgrounds. When you think about reactive oxygen species, think about these 6 right here. Those are reactive oxygen species. And also in many geez, in most science papers, this is how we understand disease and injury. And this is how we understand how, from a molecular standpoint, how things happen in cells. And this is where a lot of our medications come from. And this is how we understand disease states, by understanding these pathways. This is the experiments that I talk about, the experiments that Nicole talks about. This is how we understand these things with diagrams like this. Okay, Yulia, was there anything else you wanted to say on this one?
Nothing special. Only in below we showed two molecules, nitric oxide and glutathione, as main antioxidant. Yes, antioxidants that are able to cope with all these bad things that happening on this picture. That is why we need them, and both of them are depends on G6PD. Okay. That is why we are interested in this protein.
Okay, one other point I want to communicate to the audience is that when you're thinking about nitric oxide, that's a signaling molecule. When you think about superoxide and hydroxyl radicals, pretty much everything in the body has a physiological function, but once these things go out of balance, that's when you get injury and disease. So what we're talking about is things that are happening normally in the body when this virus gets introduced, all these things are going out of balance. And that's what gives rise to the disease state that we see.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to move on to this one. Okay, you want to walk us through this one? What are we looking for here? Or what are we looking to see here?
Okay. On this picture, I tried to show how SARS-CoV-2 interferes with antioxidant system. Yes, specifically by interaction with ACE2 and destroying it. And what consequences of interferes with this protective arm of RAS. How I said in the beginning, the RAS you see begins with angiotensin again, yes, up molecule, and this system involves downstream molecules and ACE2. ACE2 is inhibiting. That is why angiotensin 2 accumulated. Here in details, we show how aldosterone production is stimulated, and you see oxygen, yes, that induces synthesis. I put it here to emphasize that don't give a lot of oxygen. Then how aldosterone, yes, impact macrophages, and we see again TNF-alpha as in previous our picture, and how it stimulates macrophages enzyme NOX2, yes, that is able to produce a superoxide. In brief, inhibiting antioxidant system, SARS-CoV-2 is able to hyperactivate, yes, pro-oxidant system. In comments, yellow comments, we show clinical manifestation of dynamic of this molecule. For example, increasing of aldosterone causes edema, superoxide production manifests with fever, hemolysis, decreased nitric oxide is accompanied by hypertension, vasoconstriction, yes, thrombosis, and this is the main take-home message of this picture.
Before you discuss this one, I want to make a quick announcement. I want to thank Anthony Taylor, Herbert Lewis, and 23211 for the Cash Apps. Thank you very much. So Yulia, okay, so can you walk us through this one? What's the take home from this one? Or what do you want us to know from this one? I think you're muted.
Sorry. Thank you. This picture describes how G6PD deficiency can develop metabolically during metabolic syndrome. In some details, we showed, yes, how leptin is increased, yes, by adipocyte, more leptin. How leptins directly stimulate aldosterone. Again, aldosterone, you see, that is specific biomarker, yes, and increased by is able to be increased by COVID-19. Again, yes, you see the same repetitive chain pathways. Aldosterone is able to stimulate macrophages, and TNF-alpha that we saw, yes, on the previous pictures, is able to stimulate NOx2, yes, to produce superoxide. TNF-alpha, yes, a cytokine, is able to do many things, bad things. It's a signaling molecule. It can switch on a lot of pathways. And one of them, insulin receptor. And TNF-alpha is able to deactivate insulin receptor, yes, that can cause insulin resistance, transient. If patient does not have insulin resistance before COVID, but it can go through it in transient manner. With and there are a lot of articles how blood glucose level can be heightened during COVID-19, and then it can be reversed. But if metabolic syndrome persists, yes, and insulin resistance persists, it is aggravated and do worse. Such patients. And here you see in bloodstream glucose up is one of biomarker, and if glucose increased, it's a bad signal to physician that treatment should be adjusted. You see, in endothelial cell, yes, glucose is decreased intracellularly because of inability of glucose to enter the cell, and decreased glucose, less metabolized, yes, less glucose, less metabolism of it, less glucose 6-phosphate as metabolite of glucose, that is activator of transcriptor factor, yes, CHREBP, that is able to induce expression of G6PD, you see, and it means that less glucose enters the cell, less G6PD is triggered, yes, to be expressed, and less NADPH as a resulting molecule is produced. That is how acquired G6PD deficiency, yes, can be can be developed during insulin resistance. Metabolic syndrome is the more general condition. Insulin resistance is more specific component of this metabolic syndrome, and particularly this component is responsible for G6PD deficiency.
Okay. And so there is one more diagram. I'm going to zoom out just briefly. And what is this diagram? What are you communicating in this diagram?
Yes, here is our protection, yes, against inflammation, against pro-inflammatory system. Glutathione, yes, a little bit below system. Can you get below? Okay, yes, thank you. Glutathione system. Two forms, reduced and oxidized. Reduced is a potent endogenous antioxidant that is able to neutralize all attacks, yes, exogenous or endogenous on the cell. It includes reactive oxygen species from drugs, from infection, endogenous triggers including homocysteine that is a biomarker of metabolic syndrome, yes, and increased during metabolic syndrome. And glutathione system neutralize them. Not homocysteine inhibits particularly enzyme. It neutralizes ROS, RNS, reactive nitrogen species, and converting to oxidized form. Oxidized form is able to, yes, to be reversed to reduced form, but it requires NADPH, yes, and I show here FAD. It's a cofactor that is produced with help of NADPH, and our G6PD, yes, supply NADPH, and it should be in good fit, yes, to be able to supply enough NADPH to meet, yes, this increased demand of GSH recycling. That is why we put G6PD centrally, yes, because it supplies our key, yes, to our organism to be able to cope with any load of ROS that can viruses or people with drugs supply to our organism. And one detail, interesting, paracetamol. One of the insight of our co-author Sergei Kostyuchenko, he saw, as an anesthesiologist in Abu Dhabi, he saw a lot of cases when patients try to avoid NSAIDs, yes, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, and yes, take a lot of paracetamol, and they aggravate their condition. Don't know about that they get worse from paracetamol, not from COVID, and there is and how he found it, pyroglutamic acid, yes, acidosis, anion gap metabolic acidosis. All patients. Another problem, yes, we have problem with COVID and with paracetamol intoxication, and the message is to not to aggravate COVID-19. Maybe organism will cope with this virus by himself. Don't touch it. Don't interrupt it with drugs. And another biomarker, GGT, gamma glutamyl transferase, is increased because when GSH, yes, our glutathione is depleted, extracellular molecules start to supply, yes, all these three amino acids to intracellular, because intracellular system has a priority. That is why extracellular start to break to supply intracellular, because all bad things is happening intracellularly and more and has more, and is able to make more harm, yes, to DNA, and cells should be protected. Yes, all these things I wanted to say by this picture.
Okay. So one follow-up question. Once again, I see you have the GGT highlighted in yellow and the pro-glutamic acid highlighted in yellow. Are those potential biomarkers as well?
Yes, this is our biomarkers. GGT, yes, biochemistry of blood, very basic parameter, but pyroglutamic acid I saw in one patient in urine. For example, in Belarus, we are not able, yes, to measure it in blood, but we are able to measure it in urine, and I saw it. Yes, it's our biomarkers, and we should follow them.
Okay, well, yeah, that's very that was all very exciting and very educational, and I want to remind the audience that, again, what we're talking about here is reactive oxygen species, and it seems that that's the underlying theme with all of this, and that individuals who are deficient in G6PD, they have a lesser ability to protect themselves against the generation of reactive oxygen species, and the virus appears to cause an overproduction of these reactive oxygen species. So what is this work, this paper, these pathways, what's the application for this? Are you seeking to just fill in the body of knowledge, or are we making the argument that the medical community and the science community needs to pay more attention to this, or they should incorporate these biomarkers into treatments? What are we looking to take away from this?
Me, as a physician, I confess honestly, first of all, I did this research for myself, yes, because I wanted to be alive, yes, during this pandemic, and yes, to make gun, yes, against this monster 2020, and to feel confidence, yes, to navigate my action, yes. First of all, not to harm, and next, if I can do something that I can help, yes, for me, for my relatives, my friends, it would be nice. But first of all, do things that will not harm, and I can track it with biomarkers. And this message, when I was happy that I extracted them, and as using my clinical background, I understand that it can be useful. I try to show it to my other medical colleagues and involve them in this idea. And they agreed with me, some not, some yes. I'm very thankful to them who was on my side for their support. But I hope that we will, yes, proceed this approach to be prepared in any situation, in any year, and based on this lesson of 2020 with COVID-19, we just go forward with confidence that we are able to cope with everything.
I'd like to add that too, what Yulia and Roman have done is, and I think someone made a comment, this is absolutely amazing. I do agree, they have really laid it out very effectively in terms of how COVID would play a role. I think we were all very excited when we heard that Yulia has actually used these biomarkers that she described to track down her patient and to track her patients and make it a successful outcome. I think, Yulia, you were mentioning that the priest was actually called in for that patient, and he was drawing his last breaths. And they were actually able to turn that situation around completely. And now he is back home. And that's an absolutely fantastic story. For us and for the task force, this just reiterates how important it is for G6PD to come to the forefront. And we're knocking on every door possible to say, hey, you've got to take this enzyme deficiency seriously, because there are around 400 to 500 million people in this world that are deficient. And like Yulia said, you don't want to cause more harm with COVID. And we don't know how many folks are putting themselves in more harm by using treatment options that may not be optimal for them. And so I think this research is for us was a very key part of what the task force has been advocating. And now the only way to prove this out will be to do a clinical study to actually look at patients who have COVID and who have G6PD and understand the deficiency and understand how this is creating, what kind of an outcome is it creating? Is it creating a worse outcome when we look at it from the physical sense of the view?
Yes, I would like. Thank you, Nilofer. I would like to add that one of my medical colleague told me that in his department he started to measure G6PD, yes, in critical ill patients, especially in COVID patients, and he said that all measures were in normal range, and I was stuck with this, how it does not support our idea, but I found and I recalled that I knew that from student bench, yes, that during crisis G6PD is normal, because this is a false negative, yes, reaction, because when hemolysis takes place, G6PD protein, yes, spill out from erythrocyte, yes, damaged hemolytic erythrocyte into the blood, and when we measure G6PD in blood, it's normal, and in some literature, I found that we should wait 3 months before, yes, to measure again it. That is why we followed another idea to measure indirect biomarker. We didn't mention this biomarker on our pictures, but we wrote it in our article. T3, triiodthyronine, and for example, we don't even if it was useful, yes, in to measure G6PD, but for example, in Belarus, we're unable to do this. But T3 is a basic biochemical parameter of the blood, and I checked, yes, my recent patient using this T3, it was really decreased, yes, and when I saw that it started to increasing, I was calmed down. Not any other parameters, only T3 was on my main focus, and after this case, yes, especially this case, because this was one of the worst severe case, because this patient has sarcoidosis and very severe form, 60 years old, and this is autoimmune disease, and you understand how autoimmune, yes, maintains inflammation. Inflammation is a lot of ROS, yes, reactive oxygen species, and his glutathione system is depleted, severely depleted during course of sarcoidosis, and that is why I think he had this severe outcome. And I want, using my experience, I tell you that T3 is the best biomarker. We didn't show this on the picture, but we described it in detail in our article, and I would like to repeat it aloud on the session.
Okay. Well, does anyone else from the panel want to say anything? Or Nilofer, Keely, Roman?
So, Anwar, just a heads up. Like I said, this is all emerging research, and I know Yulia's read up on this other article and research that's a little different from what we are proposing here, or Yulia is proposing here. There's a lab in Princeton University that's been doing years of research, and they have come up with a molecule called the G6PD I1 molecule. And their hypothesis is that it is an inhibitor. It basically inhibits the G6PD enzyme. And their hypothesis is that the depletion of, or using that G6PD I molecule, they can actually help with reducing the cytokine storm created by COVID. So it's a little different approach. And I don't know, Yulia, if you want to talk a little bit about that hypothesis as well. But the point I'm making is that this is emerging research, and we now know that G6PD does play a role in COVID, whether with the treatment options for sure, but also from an etiology perspective. And we really need folks to step up and look at patients and look at their G6PD. Like Yulia said, it's difficult to test for G6PD when you're going through a hemolytic crisis because you'll have a false a false negative. But we need to take the people who are known to be G6PD deficient and look at what their COVID status is and really understand how did this really play out. Yulia, do you want to talk about the other paper from Princeton University? Yulia, any comments on the other paper? Or I'm not sure, Yulia. Do you hear?
Yulia, did you hear the last? You're muted.
Yes, the connection was interrupted. If there's specific last question, maybe I missed 10 seconds, last 10 seconds. If there's specific, or I can continue with my opinion regarding this article.
Yeah, we just wanted your opinion on that article, Yulia.
Okay. Thank you, Anila, for your question. I was familiarized with this article before our session, and this from the first sight, yes, is contradictory to our idea. But when I got through it thoroughly, I can say the next. The article written by Jonathan et al. Is a good, theoretically adequate scientific paper where I found no any contradictions with our one. They describe the effect of a particular small molecule, yes, G6PD.
We just lost that.
Yeah. Oh, it's good to know that it is actually complementary to what Yulia is saying. So that's a very interesting insight in my mind.
Okay. Yeah, I started looking at it yesterday, but I didn't have time to. There's a lot of data in there.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So
maybe we can wait for Yulia to get back.
Yeah. While she comes back, it looks like the vaccine they've approved a vaccine. Or several vaccines from several companies.
Yes, Kili, you want to take that? I know we've been discussing vaccines internally as part of the task force. So why don't I start? Okay, go ahead, Kili.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I'll wait.
Oh, that's okay, Kili. I was just getting started. So I think I am not really from the scientific field, right? I'm with a fintech firm, and the only reason I got interested is because I am G6PD deficient myself, and it's a hereditary trait. So a lot of my family members are G6PD deficient as well. So that was the most concerning. And I know right now, one of the most concerning topics for a lot of us in this community, or the G6PD population, is deficient population, is whether these vaccines are okay for us. And I wish we could have a straight answer and say yes or no. The fact is that we are in the waiting list, if any, that a drug company would test the G6PD population first before launching a vaccine. That is not the standard protocol, unfortunately. So we don't know. It is a new vaccine. However, from talking to Yulia and a few other scientists on our panel, I do understand that the pathways are a little different in terms of the allergic reactions that have been noticed with COVID. So I'll let Keely and, oops, we lost Yulia again, but Keely, if you want to add there.
I wish Yulia was still here because she'd be better to explain this. But I think the way that the foundation is approaching this question is the concern of the vaccination, whether it's for COVID, whether it's for another flu, and so on. So the only thing that we know in the past, that there are vaccinations for flus. And there has not been anything proposed, written, that I can find that if you are G6PD deficient, that you should not be vaccinated for the flu. This vaccination is a different type of vaccination. It's an messenger RNA type of vaccination, where the flu vaccination really deals with a different technique of getting your body immune to the flu. But that's all that we know about, is that it's a different type of vaccination, and that it actually skips a step, in the sense that the viral vaccinations that have been used in the past are generally allowing your cells in your nucleus, in the DNA, to create the messenger RNA and then bring it into the cytoplasm to create your immunity to kick off for it. The one that they're using for COVID-19 is a messenger RNA, where it skips that space. It's just, you are just being injected with messenger RNA. So your cells aren't creating it initially, it is being brought into your cells. That is about all I know about this vaccination. I'm sure Yulia could really explain more about whether or not to be concerned about the pathway that G6PD deficiency needs and uses, and then also them saying that there's problems with the people actually getting, an allergy reaction to a point where they're anaphylaxis. And that is totally a different pathway. And I think Yulia could really explain that much better than I could.
Yes, absolutely.
So I think, Yulia, I'm going to give you the mic, and I'm just stating that it is a different vaccination, and I have not yet to hear that there's any problems with it for somebody who has G6PD deficiency at this moment.
Yes, different pathways. We should not link these two molecular pathways that manifest identically, because when something get wrong, pathology takes place and everything destroys. We see hemolysis, worsening of condition, but we should focus on trigger, and molecules that are involved. But there is no link with anaphylactic shock and hemolysis from G6PD deficiency. That is why I don't extrapolate the clinical manifestations to other processes.
Okay.
Thanks. No, just wanted to say thanks so much, Julia. I was educated last week because I panicked as well when I saw news articles about allergic reactions. And I know we do have such a lot of drugs and food items that we should stay away from. But it really helped to understand that the pathways are different. And so, but I would still say this is a new vaccine. So just like the risks with any other new vaccine, I would put myself in the shoes of any other person in this, in the world that has concerns if they have any. The fact is, the good part about it is that we were able to get a vaccine out in record time. And hopefully, if it does work, will save a lot of lives and will help us de-escalate the COVID situation. But I just wish that drug companies would take G6PD much more seriously. And before they have these product launches, would test this population and make sure that it's okay for this population. It is 500 million people in this world that are impacted by G6PD deficiency. It's not a small population. And it's really unfortunate that this population is not taken into account when these drugs, whether it's vaccines, whether it's drugs, whatever it is, when they come out with these new drugs and vaccines.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to also highlight that it's in large part experienced in people of African, Mediterranean, and is it Asian descent?
That's right. Any region that had affinity to malaria, this is basically an evolutionary mutation that helps with resistance to malaria and actually also to cancer, which is a great thing for us. Good news for me. But yes, anyone that has a genetic descent from a malarial-prone region would be impacted by this.
Okay. Well, everyone, we're closing in on 2 hours here. I'm going to read a couple of comments here. I have Ramon asked me a question in the back chat about what my thoughts on the vaccine are. As a farm tox person, safety, it's been fast-tracked, and this normally can take years. So my eyes are on the safety profile of it. Obviously, we want to protect ourselves against the virus, but there are potential adverse effects from rushing a vaccine out too quickly. And I can't, there's a disease state or there's a sickness that can occur from a vaccine gone wrong too early. I can't think of it. I shot a video on that a couple months ago, but there's a danger of going too fast. So my eyes are on the safety profile. So we're closing in on 2 hours. I'm going to read a couple of comments here. Ramon pointed this one out. And then after I read these, everyone can give their closing statements. This one says, this is from Alonzo. Is this something that men with diabetes or complications from diabetes should have our doctor test us for with a quick Google search? I've had many of these symptoms. Well, yes, based upon the proposed pathways in Julia and Ramon's paper, I would say yes, get tested to determine whether or not you are G6PD deficient, because if you are, then you will have a harder time dealing with the oxidative stress, Alonzo. And then I saw Terry in here. Terry said, the U.S. military has accurate G6PD information, tested when healthy, and just released a major study broken down by race last December. Okay, I think you all shared that with me. I will put that, I'll make sure that's in the description box on the playback of this video. Terry also says, but so far the military has not released G6PD data for COVID ICU patients. Even the DoD has funded pandemic COVID research in the ballpark of $40 million over the past 7 years.
Yeah. So just I'll say thanks, Terry. Thanks so much for coming on and hearing us. Terry is part of our task force, and Terry, in fact, is the one that brought up the military study and enlightened us. She's very deep in this subject herself, although she's not necessarily a doctor or a scientist, but she's got a lot of knowledge on this topic, and she's been advocating. She's one of us. She's been advocating for more research. And I agree, the military proactively tests for G6PD deficiency because they had, back in the days, I think years back, they were sending folks to malarial-prone regions and were providing them hydroxychloroquine as a prophylactic, and were seeing adverse reactions. And so the military has started testing for G6PD deficiency, and we definitely can use that. That we could actually look at data from that population to see if COVID has impacted them more adversely, or maybe there's something else going on in the body, because the body has an amazing way of supplementing for areas where we have a weakness. So it'll be really interesting to look at real data, real clinical studies.
Okay. Terry, I'm going to read this one. I'm hesitant too because I don't want to cause but I'll read it. Okay. I know at least one of the vaccines includes nanoparticles, and supposedly those cause oxidative stress and transverse myelitis experienced by someone with the vaccine trial has a relationship to COVID, to G6PD. Okay. I was hesitant to read that one because it's more along the lines of, well, I don't want people to panic from watching this. So I would encourage everyone to do your own research, and there are a lot of theories out there running around. So just everyone do your research and just be mindful of what you see and you hear. So, okay, so we have 9. Go ahead, Niloufar.
Sorry, Anwar, but just to add to what you said, we need scientific data. And like you said, we are not here to spread any panic at all. So we are very careful about what we, what we come up with in terms of our hypothesis, and also championing for more research. All I can say is there will be a lot of experiences, individual experiences, a lot of hypothesis one way or the other, unless the authorities, whether it's the WHO, I think it has to be the WHO, as well as individual national government agencies, take this population seriously and look at it from a scientific perspective and understand what's happening from a clinical perspective. Everything we're doing here is theorizing and hypothesizing. And it's not helping the cause. I mean, I won't say it's not helping the cause. It is definitely helping the cause. But we really need people to take this seriously and start looking at it. And none of us are from these agencies, but we would love to have more people sit up, take notice, and start acting on it. And that's what we're here for. That's what the task force is here for. So.
Okay, so everyone, with that,
I just want to also state that the G6PD Deficiency Foundation, we put information on our website that has been validated. We are not ones to start talking about these hypotheses and so on. And if we do, we state that that's exactly what it is. So it's very important. That's why things take a long time, because for, like Niloufar says, they really are not looking at G6PD deficiency and COVID outcome. So this is something that is going to take time. I'm not happy about it. There are a lot of people out there that are not happy about it. So be patient. Talk to your physician. It's very important to talk to your physician about this. And if you think you possibly have G6PD deficiency for whatever reason, that's the very first step you should do is go get tested. And remember, you cannot be sick when you are being tested, especially if you're hemolyzing, because you will get a false negative. So that's all really I wanted to say.
I want to thank Ebony Knight 85 for the generous Cash App. Your viewership is appreciated. Your donations are appreciated. There are some costs to being a YouTube content creator, so I appreciate that. If you're new to the channel, new to the stream, please like and subscribe. With that, I think we should, we can close out. Do you all have any other parting comments? Or any parting comments? I appreciate you coming up. The audience appreciates you coming up and discussing, helping us fill in this knowledge.
Yes, I would like to say thank you to all of you for this interesting experience. I'm a little bit excited and this inspired me to move on and to do something, because I see, yes, your eyes that it is needed and we are on the right way. Yes, we do right things and do them right. Let's move on. And I think that 2021, it will be our time. Let's live and wait, eat, and be patient. Thank you.
Raman, you want to say anything?
Just wow. And, thank you for having us here and for going through. Yeah, let's hope it makes sense and they bring some details to the table. Of course, feel free to ask questions. Maybe Anwar, of course, you have our contacts. So if someone will have particular questions, feel free to reach out to us. We'll be happy to discuss. And thank you again. And yeah, indeed, happy holiday.
I think he wants to say thank you, all of you also. And I know that he will be glad to say this by himself, but you see, he can't. Greetings from him.
Keely and Nalupur?
Keely, why don't you?
I thank you again, Anwar, and I'm looking forward to possibly the new year, in the sense that we'll be talking about screening and for newborn screening, as well as understanding this, how to screen, the best when to screen, whether your gender also affects the screening results. So I'm really excited about that. Sometime in the near future, we can discuss that.
Thanks. I just want to say thanks so much, Anwar. It's been a pleasure collaborating with you. And I think this is the third session with you. The fourth, like Keely said, is Keely's doing some amazing work in trying to pass some bills in the US to help support more neonatal screening. And I'm sure, Keely, you can talk to it next time we meet. We do want to talk about testing for the next session that we're on. So thanks so much for having us. It's been an absolute pleasure working with this team. We do have others on the team as well, but I think if anything, 2020 has been an amazing experience for me in my mind, just meeting so many amazing people across the world and trying to drive towards a change, which I think COVID has just triggered. Keely's been trying to drive this change for years, and we're just getting on board. So I'm hoping this really changes things for the G6PD community going forward. So thanks so much, Anwar, like always. And happy holidays to everyone.
All right. Well, I want to thank you all for collaborating and sharing this information. Science it's about continuously learning. You never reach a static point where you know everything, and things are always evolving. And I want to thank you all for the collaboration, as I said in the previous stream, because, you know, with being quarantined and being, you know, having normal life altered, this has given me something to do, and it's given me something to focus on constructively. So yeah, look for more collaborations with the G6PD Taskforce and Foundation. We're going to have some more of these. As for me, I have a lot of reading to do about the vaccine myself, so look for some pre-records on that. I'm hearing stories of a nurse falling out after getting vaccinated. So look for that, some of that content here over the holiday season. I'm going to leave, if I haven't left the articles in the description box below, those will be down in the description box, along with the previous live streams with the G6PD task force. And also, it sounds like Roman and Yuli are open to being contacted, so I'll leave their information as well. And so with that, we will wrap up. Everyone, please share this in your network. This is about awareness. There are a lot of people walking around with this deficiency who don't know that they have it, and so they're very much susceptible to the adverse outcomes that come along with having it. So we're gonna stop right there. Please like the stream, especially if you're watching on the playback. Please like the stream or video. Please share it. Please subscribe to my channel. As always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Take care, and we will talk to you the next time. Everyone be safe out there.
Thank you, Anwar.
Bye-bye.
You are awesome. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.